Hey everyone. So probably one of the biggest deterrents to getting into modular is the cost. And while there are ways to keep your costs down, like building your own modules or buying on the used marketplace, you're still going to have to shell out a lot of money for that system. Also, so much of modular is just building your own sound, your own synth. So that's likely going to include a lot of trial and error, which means buying modules that you thought you needed when you actually didn't, or that you thought you'd like, and it just kind of wasn't what you were thinking. And more than likely, you're going to suffer from gas. You're going to keep searching for that one sweet nugget of a module that's going to round out your entire system, tie everything together, and then you'll be all set. And even though I try to stretch my money out as much as possible too, I also suffer from gas, and sometimes I catch myself really wanting a brand new, shiny, expensive module. So that is what this video is about. So on the left here, you have the Doepfer A-110-2 Basic VCO. This will cost you somewhere around 125 bucks, give or take a little depending on where you buy it. And on the right, we have the AJH MiniMod VCO. This one's 3 times more, somewhere in the neighborhood of $350 to $400. So what's up with this price difference? I started thinking, well, isn't a VCO a VCO? I mean, a triangle wave's a triangle wave, a pulse wave's a pulse wave. Aren't they just going to sound the same no matter what module is putting it out? Now, sure, there are some features on some VCOs that, could justify paying more. But I was stuck wondering, is this MiniMod really 3 times better than the Doepfer Basic VCO? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to compare these two VCOs, and we're also going to have a guest appearance from a third VCO. First, I'm going to tell you what brought me to this point and what I was thinking with my setup. Second, I'm going to give you an overview of both VCOs, their feature sets, some things that might make them different in comparison, and some things that might make them similar. That way we can put a little bit of a context around the comparison. Third, we'll put together a patch or a few patches together using some other modules and do some A/B comparisons so you can see how they each kind of fit in within the whole thing. Lastly, I'll end things with some final thoughts. And hopefully this can either satiate some of your gas or maybe it'll ramp it up. One quick thing before we get started, I couldn't be pumping out content like this if it wasn't for the support of my Patreon members. I'd really appreciate it if you considered joining. As a thank you to my supporters, I have patch books for the Moog Sound Studio up on the page. And for the highest tier, I'm doing giveaways of some DIY builds and other modules and things like that. I'll put the link in the description. It's a lot of fun. I hope you check it out. So let me start off by telling you a little bit about my setup and what got me thinking about these oscillators and really wanting to decide. Stevio is a modular artist who I just really love. He's one of the first people that I listened to that really got me into modular and synthesis. I love his approach and his compositions, and I've watched a ton of his videos and explanations. I've analyzed his racks that are on modular grid and tried to learn about all the different modules he's using and the techniques that he's using to make his sounds and compositions. One of the modules that I really like how he approached it was the precision adder. I did a video on that. I'll put a link up there. And in that, it gives you all these different opportunities to create chords and different voicings of chords. And so that's something I want to pursue with my setup. I really want to have at least 3, but preferably 4 of the same oscillator so I can be playing these kind of ever-evolving chords and different voicings on chords. I already had a basic VCO, so to accomplish this, all I really needed were 3 more. Now Stevio actually has 4 of the MiniMods in his setup. So that got me curious about the MiniMod. And that's where the gas kicked in, because it got me thinking I could go out and buy those 3 extra basic VCOs and complete my setup with Doepfer modules. But then I was always going to wonder about this MiniMod. I mean, Stevio, the guy who I love his sound, he uses them. So would I always just want the MiniMod? And that's kind of like that gas syndrome. But either way, I decided to take the plunge, buy a more expensive module, and test it out. If I really like it, I'll probably save up and buy 3 more of these, even though that's a tremendous amount of money, or I'll buy 3 more of the basic VCOs or something kind of in between. So that's basically why I got to this, and I'm hoping that this video could help some other people maybe answer some of those questions that I was having. Okay, let's take a look at the modules. The Doepfer Basic VCO. So this has a very similar feature set to the A-110-1 standard VCO. The main differences are that the basic VCO does not have a sine wave output. Also, the basic VCO has a toggle switch for the octaves right here, as opposed to the standard VCO, which has a rotary switch. They outline on the Doepfer website that that's one way that they cut down costs on this one, is that the switches are cheaper than the rotary switches, and so they could pass that savings on to you if you don't need that. The basic VCO is also slightly less HP than the standard VCO. There's also both, on the basic VCO, they have both linear frequency modulation and exponential frequency modulation. On the standard VCO, I can't remember which one it is, but they only have one of them. So that's kind of cool that this offers that the standard doesn't. Besides that, everything else is the same. I should also note that Doepfer has a whole line of VCOs, so they even have a high-end VCO, which it actually literally says the Doepfer high-end VCO, and a bunch of other stuff like 0-3 through oscillators and things like that. But today we're going to stick with the basic one. So beyond linear and exponential frequency modulation, it comes with everything else that you'd expect. Pulse width, you can adjust the pulse width, you can adjust pulse width modulation, and it has 2 inputs for syncing, 1 soft and 1 hard sync. You have a choice of 3 different waveforms: the sawtooth, a pulse wave, and a triangle wave. Now, sometimes when you read about VCOs, you'll sometimes read about the core, and this is a sawtooth core. So fundamentally what that means is that it starts with a sawtooth wave and then adjusts it. So the triangle wave isn't going to be like a true triangle wave, but rather a modified sawtooth, if that makes sense. That's kind of just an overview description of it. So that's opposed to an oscillator that has a triangle core and converts it to a sawtooth. Doepfer's high-end oscillator has a triangle core. From what I've read online, there seems to be a lot of debate around which is better. It seems that some people think a triangle core is better, but from what I could tell, it was people either thought triangle core was better or that it didn't matter, it was up to taste. But I didn't see a whole lot of people thinking that the sawtooth core was better. Just to put that out there, but it is something to think about. Now let's switch over to the AJH MiniMod. This module was designed to be a replica of the 45-year-old Model D oscillator. It offers a saw wave, or it's more like a ramp type of saw wave, a triangle wave, and a pulse wave, and it also gives this shark tooth wave. The MiniMod does have a rotary switch at the top, which gives you a huge range of octaves to choose from, and in the lowest setting, which actually says low, you can use it as an LFO as well. Beyond that, there's some differences in how you sync and what the inputs are and everything. But overall, the feature set, I would say, is negligible between this and the Doepfer. The only major difference that I see is the availability of the shark tooth wave, and that it has a rotary switch available. Beyond that, it's probably going to be used in the same way that the basic VCO is. I should also note that the build quality on this thing is awesome. I mean, it just feels like a luxury model. The knobs are great. The design is great. It's just awesome. Even the screws that it came with little nylon nuts to protect it from rack rash. That's something you care about. And while I love Doepfer products, my one main complaint is that sometimes the jacks are a little bit hard to push cables into, and I don't have that problem at all with the MiniMod. It doesn't come up enough with Doepfer to make me not want to buy their stuff, but it's just kind of notable that it might feel a little bit more like a budget module than the MiniMod. So that's kind of a rundown of both modules. Let's set up some patches. Okay, so I think the best way to do this is to build up a patch slowly and pause kind of in between to give you a sense of what it sounds like. I've got the MiniMod here, I've got the basic VCO here, and here's our guest VCO, the AI Synthesis DIY build. This is a module that I made, and we're going to feature that one too. That one comes in actually just a little bit cheaper than the basic VCO if you do it yourself. All right, let's get everything tuned up, and this way you can hear what they sound like with just the basic waveforms. So let's go ahead and start with the MiniMod and a triangle wave. We're at C3, and if we go to the basic VCO, so already right there, you can hear that there is a little bit of a difference. The basic VCO sounds a little bit rougher, I guess. Let's hear the AI synthesis. AI sounds much more warmer to me. Let's hear the ramp or the sawtooth wave. This is the basic VCO first. Now let's go to a pulse wave. And because it's here, listen to the shark tooth wave. We don't have that on the Doepfer. All right, let's set up a little bit of a sequence. I'm going to be using my Turing machine with the expander. Okay, let's add an envelope, and we can use Quadrax for that. Okay, so I've got everything wired up through Quadrax and the Quad VCA. I'm setting it down to a Doepfer switched multiple just so I can switch between the two of them. I'm going to do pulse width, and I'm actually going to modulate it using maths. Okay, let's put it through a filter and see how that affects the sound. I'm going to send it up through a pop-o filter by After Later Audio, and let's add some modulation to the cutoff. let's add in a kick drum. I'm going to use the Erica Synth bass drum. And let's just listen to the shark tooth wave just so you can hear a little bit of what that sounds like too. Just because I said there'd be a guest appearance from the AI Synthesis VCO, this one's a little bit harder to switch between because it does not have a switch for the octave range, but I just want to kind of give a little bit of a sound comparison there too. So let's compare the MiniMod to the AI Synthesis VCO. All right, here we go. What's up, everybody? This is actually the second time I've filmed a conclusion for this video. I filmed the whole video previously, and then when I sat down to edit everything, I spent so much time listening to those sound samples, mixing them up, and I felt like I really gave them a deep listen. And I've switched back and forth on which one's my favorite and all the different things I was thinking about them. But after listening extremely closely to all of those videos and sound samples and really spending the day kind of thinking about my experience playing with those modules, I ended up in a different place. I want to say I don't really think there's a clear winner. Neither one of them is better than the other one. They all have their pluses and minuses, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I think those are. Number one, the cost is definitely in favor of either the Doepfer or the AI synthesis. So, I mean, that's just a really, really big one. So we'll give that one to those guys. One of the biggest differences that I noticed was in the triangle wave. The AI synthesis triangle and the MiniMod triangle was very similar. The Doepfer one just seemed, I don't know, kind of noisy. It might have to do with what I talked about at the beginning, where it's a sawtooth core. I don't know, but for some reason that triangle sounded really abrasive to me. So if you're going to use your oscillator for like bell-like tones, ambient music, soft calming music, that Doepfer Basic VCO is probably not one you want to get. Also, for me, comparing the AI synthesis to the others, I really like having the switchable octaves either by a switch or the rotary switch. I actually prefer the rotary switch, so that got me thinking about the Doepfer standard VCO, but that's a whole other thing. Either way, to me, that just kind of knocked the AI synthesis module down a little bit because it has a coarse tune and a fine tune, which is kind of cool, but I want a switchable octave range. But as far as actual sound, I thought the AI synthesis was pretty comparable to the MiniMod. It doesn't have the shark tooth wave, but you know, the shark tooth wave, I mean, I guess it was kind of cool. If that's something you really like that sound, then the MiniMod might be your thing. But for me, I don't see myself really using it as much. So as far as sound goes, the AI synthesis module was kind of up there for me. I didn't really notice much difference in sound between the MiniMod, the Doepfer, or the AI synthesis with sawtooth waves. With pulse waves, I did notice one big difference was that the Doepfer module, you can actually turn the pulse width up or down so much that the sound cancels out. You can hear that in a brief moment in the sound examples. Personally, I don't really like that because it just increases the chances that you could mess up and you cut out your sound for a second. Overall build quality, I would say hands down is the MiniMod. I mean, it was just last night when I made this video, I was going to say that the MiniMod was my favorite and I was going to save up for money for those. I'm not so sure today, but I think it's because I just finished using them and there's something about that module that just makes it fun to use. It sounds good. It's just looks good. It's nice to put your hands on. It's really kind of hard to describe, but it just feels like a really well-built and well-designed module. So if money were absolutely no object, I would be going with the MiniMod. So that conclusion probably makes this video like no help at all to you. It really depends on what you're looking for. If you just want a down and dirty sawtooth oscillator that has a switchable octave range, the Doepfer is a great one. So anyways, that's the video. I hope you got something out of it, that you enjoyed the sound examples. Let me know what your favorite oscillator is down in the comment section. I'm really curious to hear what everybody's using. Also, let me know if through these sound examples, any one of the three that I highlighted today sticks out to you. Thanks so much for watching. If you aren't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. Check out my Patreon page. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.